Welcome everybody, it's Wednesday the 5th of August 2020 and this is a Textivate-User webinar with Julia Morris. I'm Helen Myers, I'm chair of the London branch of the Association for Language Learning. This webinar has been facilitated a lot by Heike Philp and Linguiscope, who've given us a lot of help on how to do webinars. And we're just saying hello to Joe Dale, who is at a distance on holiday, but just to remind you that he is available for sessions if anybody wants any sort of one-to-one or private sessions with schools. He's available and we'll include that in the follow-up to this event. On behalf of ALL, I welcome you and ask you to now write in the chat, please, if you are a member of the Association for Language Learning. It would be great to know if you're a member, and you can encourage other people to join as well. And if you join today, you will receive a 10% discount on membership if you use that code webinar10. And it's been great. Last week, they got in touch with me to say that we've got lots of members who've joined as a result of these webinars, which is lovely to hear. Obviously, it's much more than just coming to webinars. It's being part of an association where people are often used as the, I'm doing a webinar, sorry. If there's a particular consultation going on, then the government, the DFE, Ofqual, Ofsted will get in touch with us. So it's something that's useful to be a member for that reason. The recording will be stored in a link from ALL. So there'll be a page devoted to this webinar and you'll be able to click on the link and you'll be able to see the video, which will be stored on my YouTube channel. And coming soon, just to tell you, we've got a webinar with Catherine Ousselin on integrating social media and authentic resource creation tools. So it's something which Joe is incredibly excited about, the fact that Catherine is coming to speak to us. So please do put that in your diary. Whether you're joining us on Zoom or YouTube, be aware of our etiquette. And in summary, we're always professional and we're kind. Nobody ever uses our webinar to have a rant. Everything's recorded, so contributions are going to be relaxed and friendly and supportive. ALL London is very happy to host speakers and participants free of charge, and speakers and participants are responsible for what they say. So welcome to this, a Textivate-User webinar with Julia Morris. There you've got information from Julia. She'll perhaps give you a bit more of a background herself. But if I can say how delighted I am that I met Julia. Julia has given live presentations at our regular technology and language teaching conference, which we normally have in April of every year. She was due to speak this year. She's already given a really, really good webinar on using escape rooms. She's absolutely brimming with ideas in imagination and creativity. And I know that she uses Textivate a great deal. And so actually it was a particular, when I knew this, we talked together, I said it would be lovely if you could give us from a teacher point of view, how are you using Textivate to help? So that's what she's going to be doing, how she uses the online resource just to expose people to loads and loads of language, but also, and importantly at the moment, showing how she can design a sequence of activities at a distance and be able to monitor what's going on. So I'll stop my share now. And Julia, if you'd like to now share your screen, if you'd like to, and it'll be Martin and I will be looking at the chat. We may be able to answer some of your questions in the chat, but as I say, otherwise it'll be at the end. Please, could you remember to put a Q in front of your question if you've got one. Okay, Julia, over to you.
Okie dokie. So hello, thank you for coming to this webinar. So I'm going to talk about Textivate, and we saw in the poll earlier that not everybody has used it before. So I'm going to start with some of the basics. I think I'll start with running you through how you would go through a sequence, maybe with your class, to introduce some vocab, work on a text, and then I'm going to go kind of a step back and show you how to actually create the resources, how to get your text or your vocab lists into Textivate, and then I show you how you can set it for online learning. So for example, if you're still teaching remotely, or if you want to give homework, it's a really good tool for that. So and that's one of the reasons why we decided to do this Textivate webinar, I think, because it's so useful for remote teaching. And well, hopefully we don't need it, but who knows? And well, I have used it for homework before, so it's good in any case. Okay, and then hopefully I'll still have some time to go into a few more details of all the cool things you can do with Textivate. Okay, if you haven't realized this yet, unfortunately it's not free, so you need to have a membership for this. But I think compared to many other websites, it's not that expensive. So if you manage to get a department membership, it's £120 a year for 10 teachers. So that's only £12 a year per teacher. And I think that's very reasonable. And you don't have to pay for your students. So you get a lot of, I think you get, I don't know, 100 students per teacher or something. I don't know. I've never reached the limit. So you don't need to pay anything on top of that. So, and I have to say, the first year I had it, I actually paid it from my own pocket because I knew my department would just roll their eyes if I say, oh, I want to try out this new thing. And then I liked it so much and I found it so useful that I then showed it to the rest of my department and they said, oh, actually, it's quite good. And then they subscribed to it as well. And then this year I changed schools and the first thing I did basically was talk them into getting Textivate as well. So I can't even teach without it anymore, to be honest. I'm so used to it now and all my lessons have Textivate in it. I think it's just, yeah, such a good tool for so many different things. Yeah, I can't live without it, really. And so a lot of you said that you already know Textivate. Task Magic. And when you see Textivate in a minute, it is very similar. So it is kind of the follow-up product. But there are a few differences and it's a bit more, well, there are more options, I think, in Textivate. And the important thing is that it works on all devices. So the students can use it on their phones, on their tablets, on their home computers without having anything installed. And well, especially at the moment, that's a really important point, I think. So it's, yeah, it's worth updating, I think. But you can decide that after I've showed you a little bit of what you can do. And also it has text to speech, which is really good. So you don't have to record anything. It does all the speaking for you. Again, I'll show you this hopefully in a minute. And yeah, so I'll just show you some examples. On Twitter, I've already sent around a link to a Textivate challenge earlier. I'm not sure many people used it. I'll send it again at the end of the of the webinar, so you can try it out. But I won't do it now because it might be a bit distracting. So at the end, I give it to you, and then you can play around and try out the task as well. Okay, first of all, I need to share my screen. Let me work this out. Here we go. And I've made, here we go. Okay. If you can't see my screen, then give me a shout. Assume you can see it. So I've made a resource here where I've literally chucked everything in that you can do with Textivate, or nearly everything you can do. So normally I wouldn't have maybe all of this mixed into one resource, but obviously I wanted to show all the different things you can do with this. Okay, so this is kind of the teacher area. So there are 3 different screens to Textivate, if you haven't seen it before. This is kind of the teacher overview with all the activities. Then this is what it looks like when you're making it. I know it looks quite complicated, but don't be worried about all these weird symbols. You don't actually need to type them in. It does it automatically. And then when you click on any of these activities, then you come to the activity view. So let's say I want to introduce a new set of vocab. So as you can see, I'm a German teacher, so I've chosen a German examples here. So I might want to start very basic with some flashcards.
In a small town. In einer kleinen Stadt.
Okay, can you hear the sound as well?
Yes, we can. It's very clear.
Yeah, okay, good. So the computer sound you heard. Yeah.
Yes,
good.
we
So
did. Yeah.
as you can hear, it can you can have the text to speech on. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have it on for the English, really. I should have turned that off. But for the German, obviously, it's quite good, especially if you're maybe not a native speaker and you're presenting in your second or third language, where maybe your pronunciation you're not quite so sure. It's quite nice to have this to speak for you when you're introducing it.
A mother.
So here, mothers, it says the English first.
Eine Mutter.
It shows me the next one. So then let's say we've gone through this 1 or 2 times, then I can make it a bit harder. So I could now, for example, take out all the vowels. So
a father,
and then this, if I'm using this in class, the students would then have to call out einen Vater, because they've seen the vocab before.
einen Vater, a brother,
and so on. I can make it hard. I could have it as an anagram, so show them this, so they have to work out as is einen Bruder. So because they can see the capital letter, it might remind them that it starts with a B and so on. You could even have just the number of letters. So if you want to make it really hard,
einen Bruder,
and so on.
a sister,
And if there's
eine
a word,
Schwester,
if there's a word that no one remembers, I then click the X, which means it puts it back at the end. So when we've gone through all the words, then that word that no one remembered comes up again. So it reminds them. And yeah, so you can either do this in class to introduce the vocab, or the students can do this at home to practice. So a little bit like what you know from Quizlet and so on, but with the added benefit of having these different options of having just some of the letters and so on, which is quite great, quite good. Okay, so let's say we've done that. Then as a start in the next lesson, I might do this little task. So they have to match it up. So I have a family.
ich habe eine Familie,
And in this case, so when I click on the English,
ich habe eine Familie,
it actually tells me the German. So it's kind of a listening task as well, but I can turn that on and off. So down here it says Deutsch on. So the German side is on. So I could turn that off if I actually want them to remember, not just listen to it. But as you can see, it's a really good way of generating a listening task, for example, during lockdown, without having to record anything. So in this case, ich habe eine Familie, so they click on there.
ich habe eine Familie,
Matched it up, and it shows straight away that it's correct. And as you can see, I can also have pictures in it. So it can be words to pictures, or words to words. The words can only be on one side, so you can't have pictures to pictures or something, but you can have it to the pictures and then matching up with the foreign language. Okay, so let's say we've done this for a little bit, then there are a few little games as well. If you've used Task Magic, you remember, you recognize the football game, so that's one that the students quite like. I need to choose and I'll start game. Here we go.
eine Katze,
In this case, it gives us even away by saying the sound, eine Katze, there we go. Yeah, I got it right. So now I can pass the ball.
einen
And so
Vater,
on. So that's just a fun little game. There are a few other ones like 3 in a row, or memories you have to remember.
eine Katze,
Kind of, ooh, that was lucky. And they need to try and get pairs. So just a few little things as a little start or plenary, quite useful. Then they can also do writing. So if you're actually giving this to the students as homework, they could do a writing task. And the great thing is that once you've got your vocab in Textivate, you can then really easily differentiate it, because a stronger student, you might give this task and say no letters, so he or she has to write the whole thing. So eine Schwester. Okay. While
I have a family,
a weaker student, you could give much more help and could, for example, you could give them the
a brother,
consonants or 50% of the letters and so on. So you can help them quite a lot. I mean, giving the first letters is
a sister,
often quite a good help for the weaker students to remember their phrases or their sentences. And yeah, so let's say they've matched up the vocab and so on. I can then go to the text activities. So these were all match activities, so vocab matching. Now we come to text. So in this case, so you can have a set of vocab matching tasks and a text in the same resource. So if they go together, so they're the same topic, the same vocab, it makes sense to save them as one resource. But you can also obviously just have a text task or just have a match task. They don't need to go together. They are, yeah, So for the text, I guess the most useful one are the gap fill tasks, and I can choose if I want to hide the words or not at the bottom, so they can do a little gap fill. You could now use this as a dictation, because if you turn on the text to speech here, I can listen to it.
Ich wohne in einer kleinen Stadt im Norden von England.
Okay, so they can hear that is Stadt that's missing. So this is really just, yeah, a simple listening task. Or if you turn off the sound, they actually need to remember the vocab there. They could also do like unjumbling the text, kind of trying to bring it in the right order. They could, what else can they do? Again, they can put in the letters. So, and now this is the great task, the great part. You can have two texts here, so you can have a parallel text. And that, so I need to get rid of my face to find it. So at the top here, I've got all these different symbols, and I've got the text symbol there. There you go. Now turn this on. So I've got an extra text, which here is in English, which is the translation text, basically. So this is the text they're translating. So you can see there, it's I live in. So they need to remember it's ich is I, live is wohne, and so on. And they can use this as a translation task that's marking itself, which is great. So I use this a lot, even with my sixth form students, when they're doing their translation tasks. It's yeah, I just give it to them like this. I mean, it makes it a little bit easier because they can see how many letters they need, but it really helps them to remember all the different endings, the word order, especially in German, and so on. So they can see straight away if they got it right or wrong. So it's really useful for translation tasks. I could also have a picture next to it. In this case, I've put a sentence builder there. It's a bit small, so it doesn't work that well if you've got too much information in it. But obviously the picture here could be a picture of something else. It could just be for a picture description, for example. You could have one of those pictures in there. And another great thing, you can have a YouTube video. So in this case here, the lesson, Meine Familie, which goes with this task. I mean, it's not quite the identical text, but I could use this, for example, if they're listening to a song, they can watch the video there and then write the text of the song over there, or the translation of the song, depending how you set it up. So any YouTube videos, you can really easily embed there, and you can just show. So I can play it from there. I can scroll around if I want, pause and so on, then do the task and then come back to the video. And Martin will probably want me to mention there's also Teachvid, which is this other website, which has a few more options if you want to do things with videos. But you can do quite a lot in Textivate as well. And have I got anything else? That is it for the parallel tasks. But another way you could use the parallel task, let me see if I can find it, is I've always got that at the top, which blocks up my tabs. Sorry, no, not this one.
Can I just say, Julia, if you want
yes.
to get rid of the bit at the top,
yeah,
you can.
A way of,
if you go on more, and then
yes.
it's something, get rid of the meeting control or something, and then you press escape if ever you want it back again.
Okay.
Floating meeting control. So just
remote control. I better leave it there, otherwise I'm not gonna find it again. Okay. Can't find it now. Well, I'll come to something else first then. Namely, there's so much you can do. I hope I don't forget anything. So you can also have worksheets of everything. So everything I just showed you, you can basically have as a worksheet. So that text activity, the gap fill here, for example, I can just click down here, print, and it will print it. Will it do it now? Sorry, it's loading the preview. So without having to do any extra work, all of this can be used as worksheets. And as I said earlier, it's really good for differentiation, because I often print out the same worksheet just in slightly different versions. So I might have an easier version which has the words at the bottom, and a slightly harder version which has no words at the bottom, and then the students can choose, or I encourage them to choose the easier or the harder version depending, or if it's a translation task. It's really great for differentiating, because some students, the stronger students, can just look at the textbook and just do the translation. The slightly kind of the medium students, they can use the gap fill or the letter fill activity to translate it, and it will at least show them if the word is long enough, and maybe if they've had the word in the right order. And then the really weak students, I can give them the translation with the first letters, or 50% of the words even, or 50% of the letters even. So yeah, and you only have to create the task once, which I come to in a minute, how to create this. And once you've done it, you've got all these different options to use with it. Yeah, so in this case here is the text fill, the gap fill, sorry. But now I can't get rid of it again. There we go. Also, you can, any resources that you make, and I come in a minute to how to make them, you can share. So you can look in public resources. So as long as people have clicked that they are happy to share it, you can find it in there. So if you teach a new topic, which you haven't done, well, I don't teach any Spanish, so I could just put in Spanish numbers. Let's find that. And then I can see here lots of people have made different resources. I can see if this one is useful. Yes, here this looks like Spanish numbers to me. So I could use this task with my students. I could I can copy and paste it and change it if I want. If I don't want all the numbers, I could take some out and so on. So a bit like on Quizlet, that you can see what other people have made. And let me find my resource again. So here's my resources. So one thing that I think could still be better about Textivate is that it needs folders, I think, because at the moment it just works with tags. But as you can see over here, my tags have, well, gone slightly out of hand here because I've just got too many. So if you get started with Textivate, I really encourage you to think of a good system on how to save it. So at first I started with saving everything either as GCSE Foundation or GCSE Higher, but then as you can see, sometimes I forgot to put Stimmt in, sometimes I put in German instead, and sometimes I called it GCSE Red and instead of Higher. So it's not so easy to always remember what you called it last time. But yeah, try to think of a good way of putting tags on your resources. So what I wanted to show you was, can't find it now. Here in recent, sorry. So you can even use it for something like practicing literary texts, because if I do something like this, so letters, so, no, not hangman, sorry. Letters, no letters, and so I'm talking about the GCSE style task where they have to read a real literary text and then have to answer questions on it in German. So in this case, I've put it all in English so everybody understands it. So I've put the original text in there. So he was a tall man with the moustache, and then I've got the questions. It makes more sense in the original order. So let's go with the original. So my first question is, what did he look like? So they need to look here. Oh, what did he look like? Oh, he was tall. So they can then put that in. Yay, they got it right. Where was he? Where was he? In front of the house. So they can put it in there. So it gives them a bit more guidance and a practice of maybe the question words and how to find the information, and how much, kind of what level of detail they have to go into when they're giving answers for this kind of task. Okay, so this was only a small part of all the activities you can do, but if I do all of them, I'll be here tomorrow, I think. So now I get to how to make it, and it's easy. because you literally just need to copy and paste it in. So let's start with a new screen here. So this is what it looks like at the beginning. So you've got a text tab and a match tab, which is quite straightforward, but easy to mix up. So make sure that you're always in the right part. So match is obviously where you want to put in your vocab list. And I just quickly show you that you could just copy and paste it from Quizlet, for example. So I'll go over here to Quizlet. I've just found some kind of random set. Oops, let's go back. Here's some German. And let's say I've got this list and I want to use it in Textivate. So I can just go over to export. And here in custom, I put in a double equal, because that's the symbol you need in Textivate between one language and the other language. So now let's put that in. I can copy it, and I just go over to my Textivate. Where's the empty one? My control's always in the way. Sorry. And I just post it in there. Okay, so this is what your match list needs to look like. Yeah, so having this equal in the middle. Let's say it's copied in like this, which is actually not that great, because for most tasks it's better when the foreign language is on the right hand side. But luckily there's this little switch match button, and ta-da, it's switched it all around, which is great. Just one mistake I seem to make a lot is that I start typing stuff and halfway through the list I then switch the languages. So in that case, just copy the half that you've got the wrong way around, put it in a Word document or something, switch around, and then copy it back in again, so it's both on the same side. Yeah, so really easy. If you've got a vocab list in a table, so for example, like here, so this is just from Stimmt, the vocab list that came with the book, and it's in a table, but it's in a visible table. Textivate will recognize that. So let's delete all this. Quite a long list here. Delete it. If I put it in, so it's recognized that it was in a table, so it knows which side, that the two sides were separate. So, and again, I can just go to switch items here to make sure that the German is on the right hand side. Okay, for text, same way, so you can paste in your text. There's also a great way of getting it from an actual textbook, which of course has lost my page now. Sorry, I left it inactive too long, so it's just closed it down. Let's find some random text here. So let's say I've got this from my A-level textbook, and I want to turn this into a Textivate task because I want them to be able to listen to it, or I want to make it into a gap fill activity or a translation activity or whatever. There is a great tool on that you can get on computer, which is called PhotoScan, which is a free free app for the computer, which you can just get on the Windows App Store. I'm not sure about Mac, but you might be able to find it there as well. And so I've just need to go over to this text. I copy it by clicking the Windows button, Control and S. So that brings my snipping tool up. Then I can just go around the text. Ta-da. Then I go into my photo scan from clipboard. Ta-da. And it's turned it into a proper text, even though it was just a picture in an online textbook. So I can take out the line breaks as well, which is quite handy, especially if it's in 2 columns. So now I've got the text. I mean, there might be a few mistakes in there. It's always quite good to proofread it again, but I just go with it now. And really quickly, I can now go to my text tab, put it in there. There you go. And I've got my textbook text in there. And I can now add different activities to it. So for example, a gap fill. So let's show this again. So down here where it says user defined gap fill, I click on there, and then ta-da, I might want to take this one out and this one and this one. I can even put in some red herrings. So if I really want to test them, I could put in the word verschiedenes with different endings to check that they actually pick out the one with the correct gender, the correct case, and so on. So if you're mean, you can put some extra words in there. So it's not quite so easy. Or to be extra mean, you can hide the word list completely. Okay, so now as you can see, it has put in these weird symbols there, hashtag, but you can just ignore that. And I can now go back here and in my user defined gap fill, ta-da, the gaps are in there. So it's really easy to turn any online textbook or any vocab list you've got into a Textivate task. And remember, I just need to do this once, and now I can do all these activities. I can print out all the worksheets and all the different levels with more help, with less help, and so on. So it's great for that. Okay, so what shall I do next? Shall I talk about sequences first, maybe, and then come back to the extra, so how to get videos in and so on. So I'll do the sequences first. So see, there are two different ways of sharing your activities with your students: sequences and challenges. Both of them can be done on any device as long as it's got internet connection. And for both of them, you can see the student progress if you signed up your student. So you need to make student accounts, but you don't need their email addresses or anything. You can, if your school is quite strict, I guess you could anonymize it and just use their initials or something. But I might show you later if people want how to sign up your students. So let's say you've got a class signed up. You then can set them a sequence, which means you decide what tasks they need to do, in which order, and a few other options. For example, are they allowed to have the sound on? Are they allowed to have the word list or not? And so on. While a challenge, you give them the control, really. So you just give them the vocab list or the text, basically, and they can choose whichever text they want to do. So they can choose to do just a football game the whole time if they want to, or they can do a gap fill task, or yeah, whatever they like, really. But the good thing is you can see the points in a challenge. So and the easier tasks will give them less points. So if they choose to just do, I don't know, match up, they might only get a couple of points. Or if they play football game, yes, they get points, but not very many. While if they choose to do one of the writing tasks, especially one with less help, then they get much more points. So it kind of encourages them to do the harder tasks. And you can also see if they've just played around or if they really tried some of the more difficult tasks. So challenges are good if you want to give the students more options, and if you don't really care too much which of the activities they do, as long as they have a look at the vocab. So for example, if you have a vocab, like a session in a computer room or something, you might just say, okay, here for an hour or half an hour, have a go on Textivate, do whatever you want. And then at the end, I don't know, I give a prize to the person who has the most points, or I shout at the people who have the least points, or whatever your method might be. To make a challenge, I'll just quickly show you. You just go down here on the little cup thing. Joyce, I think your microphone is on, because you can hear some typing in the background. Sorry, thank you. So I just go to a new challenge, just call it Textivate, and then I can add resources. The good thing about challenges is you can have several resources. So let's say you want to use this as a revision tool for GCSE. You could add, I don't know, 5 different topics to it. I'm just adding the one to it. And the students can choose if they need more revision on environment or holiday or whatever topic they want to do. So I can put in a an end date, and I can ask them to put in their password, which is good if I want to see who's actually done it, or without a password if you're just giving it to anyone, basically. Okay, so I save this, and then I can just share this challenge with them, and just post it on Teams or Google Classroom or whatever you're using with your class, and you can just give them that link. You can also share with the class, but I found it easier to just just give them the link straight away and remind them of what their password is, because otherwise they never remember. Okay, so sequences, as I said, you decide in which order they do it. So my typical sequence would be, I choose a few match activities. So first I might want them to do the switch match, which was the one where they had to match them up. Maybe then do a little game so they don't get too bored. And then I do one that I have to write a little bit so that I get 50% of the letters in a random order. So there are a few extra options here, like if you want it switched or not. That means if you're turning it around. So if you have the English on the left-hand side and the foreign language on the left, no, on the right-hand side. Anyway, for different tasks, it's better to have the language on different sides. So you can switch it around if you need to. And then let's say they've learned that a bit, they can then have a go at the text task and do the gap fill activity. And then to be really mean, they also have to write out the whole text, let's say, and I just give them the initials. And yes, all the words need to be filled in, or I could even say, oh, well, okay, you only have to do half the words. And I can set targets, which is quite useful. So I can say, okay, they need to get at least 70% correct to be able to move on to the next task. That avoids them just clicking until they got it right, because every time they click it wrong, they will lose some of their percentage. So this way, they really need to concentrate and try to do it. And if they don't get those 70%, it will just say, you didn't get enough, you have to do it again. So they need to keep on doing this first task until they got at least 70%. So with some less willing students, it might be a good idea to put a minimum in there, so they don't just guess. Because another thing they can do, if I just show this in the text here, they can, oh no, wait, that was not so good one. Let's say they're doing a translation task here. So down here it says hint. So they can use a hint, which gives them the next letter. So here it's given them the first letter. They still don't know what this is, so they can click hint. So in theory, they could just go through the whole text, just clicking hint, hint, hint. But down there, it would just be 0%. So I can see straight away that they haven't actually done it. So that's why it's quite good to set a minimum percentage, because this way they can't just cheat. And even if they've already got a few percent, if they then click hint, it kind of, the percentage obviously goes down again. So you can keep tabs on how much they use the hint. But on the other hand, the hint can be quite useful, because if they're really stuck and they really can't remember what the word is, then they can use it and then at least carry on with the rest of the text. So for some weaker students, especially with translations, which they find quite hard, it's quite a good way of kind of keeping them going and not giving up because they can't remember it. Okay, so sequences. Once I've set the sequence, what is quite important that you then share it in the right way. So I need to make sure, no, let's go to one that I've saved. Oops, sorry. So here's a resource that I've already saved before, and that's why the little share button comes up. So I can share, and I can either share the resource, which means they can just do whatever they want with it, basically. But in this case, I want to share the link to the sequence, which means they have to go through that order I've given them. And I can decide if I want, so if I share the sequence or the task with them, they can see all these extra texts and extra videos and so on. They will all be in there as well.
Ich habe eine Familie.
Oops, sorry. It speaks to me. Okay, so, and then I can just show you what information you get. So let's go, oh, wait, why do I do this again? Here. So I've deleted all the results of my actual classes. So the only class I've still got in here is called Home. So that only has my son in it. So for privacy reason, Freddie is the only one in here. So here I can see what he's done. And so for him, I'm using it for him to learn the times table. So I can see he's done it, okay, quite a long time ago. And I can click on the details and I can see exactly what date he's done it, how long the task is taking him, what the score was, what the total screen time was, the average score overall, and so on. So you get a lot of information there. And what I found really useful in during lockdown, when I had to do online teaching, was that after each task that I do in a sequence, so let's say this was a sequence, as soon as he's finished the click and match activity, the results will come up and I am able to see. So like in the task down here, you see it's a bit pale, but it says 1/3, so 1 task out of 3 done. And I can see how far he got. So that was really useful because that meant if I had a longer sequence, maybe 10 tasks or something, I can check after 5 minutes, have the students even started it, and then those students who hadn't started at all, I could then contact them and say, oh, do you remember your password, or what's going on? Do you not know how to do it, and blah, blah, blah. And I can also see, obviously, when students are finished. So I would have, if this was a proper class, I would have a whole list of all my students there, and I can see exactly how many tasks they've done for that one activity, or well, that one sequence I've set them. So that's a great way of keeping tabs on them. Then, are there any questions or any wishes what I go into next? Anyone?
Martin's doing a great job of answering.
Okay,
I'm keeping a copy of the questions and noticing that he is answering all of them. So
okay, that's fine. Okay, sorry, it jumps around a little bit. I'm not necessarily doing it the most logical order. I'm trying to do it in the order which I think is kind of useful. So I showed kind of the main tasks you can do, how you can set it as homework or online work. Then maybe I come to the listening tasks now. So as you saw earlier, it has a text-to-speech automatically. So how to do this is, I can show you what this task looks like here. So this is what it looks like when you look at the edit screen here. So it says speak, : == ich wohne in einer kleinen Stadt. And this is a trick that Martin has only just showed me, that if you put this in, it will just read out exactly the sentence that is on the other side. Or if you have a picture, like I had this picture of a horse, so I've entered the link to the picture. I'll come in a minute to how to add pictures. So they all have to be online pictures. And then I've put the sentence next to it, das ist mein Pferd. And it's matched up with the question, was ist das? So the picture says, this is my horse. And it's matched up with the question, what is it? While the other one is matched up with, my horse is brown. And the question is, what color is it? So I'll show you what it looks like. It might make more sense. So let's say I want them to do this task, the switch. So now it doesn't show them the translation, it just shows them the sound. So I can click here.
Das ist meine Mutter.
Okay, so it's saying it in German, but I'm matching it up to the English. They have to match it up with the translation. Or here's a picture.
Das ist
Okay, so
mein
das ist mein
Pferd.
Pferd. I mean, the picture gives away that it's a horse, but I actually have to still listen to it because they need to work out, in this case, what question it answers, namely, what is it? While the
Das
other
ist
one,
mein Pferd. Mein Pferd ist braun.
So, which color is it?
Mein
I mean, this
Pferd
is
ist
a weird
braun.
mix here, that some of it is English, some of it is German, some of it is a question. Obviously, I wouldn't do it like this normally. I would do it in different, either do match up with the German or match up with the English or match up with the question. So I just wanted to show kind of all the different things you could do, because let's see this one.
Ich wohne in einer
Ich wohne in
kleinen
einer kleinen
Stadt.
Stadt. So this says it in German, and I'm matching it up with the German.
Ich wohne in einer
So
kleinen
it's kind
Stadt.
of like a dictation task or listening task in this case, really. But I have to listen to it and match it up. And I mean, if you have your sentences which are very similar, so it could be, I live in a small town, I live in a big town, I live in a medium town, then they really have to listen really carefully to the differences to be able to match it up to the right one. So it's a really good way of doing really easy listening tasks. And they can slow it down as well or speed it up. So if I go really slow.
Ich habe zwei Schwestern.
I mean, it might be a bit difficult for you to tell if you can't speak German, but it's very slow, or I can do it very fast.
Ich habe zwei
so
Schwestern.
This is basically normal native speaker speed. And I didn't have to record anything for it, so it did it all automatically. And you can choose lots of different languages. So I'll show you how to do these extra ones. So that's in the extra tab here. So it says here main text TTS off. Okay, so the main text, in this case I haven't got one, would be my text. So I can choose all these different languages here. Okay, so we've even got Spanish and Latin American Spanish. We've got different types of English, so American English, Australian, UK English, German, French, lots of languages there. So you need to decide in my list, in this case, well, it's kind of mixed, but I would want kind of German on both sides in this case. So I'll maybe put German there and German on this side as well to make it sound nice. And the parallel text would be the translation. So you could even have this as a kind of dictation now. So this is where you choose all the different the languages. And there are lots more options. So down here, so this is where you add all these other things. So video, you can just paste it from YouTube. So it needs to be a video that's uploaded somewhere online. If you want to add your own video, you would have to upload it first. So I think it works with Dropbox. Yeah, so if you have a Dropbox, then you can create an account, a link from there, but I haven't really used it that much, so I'm not the expert on that. And the same with sound. So if you want to use your own audio recording, it needs to be uploaded somewhere. Martin, did you want to say something about uploading it?
I'll just interject there. While it's true that the audio and the image have to be uploaded somewhere online, and there can be any link that works. For the audio, it has to end in an appropriate audio file type, and the same with the image. The video one's very specific. It has to be the YouTube, TeacherTube, Vimeo. There's a few others, but if you see to the right of that box, it says "See here for more details." It gives you a link of the various formats.
Yeah,
it gives you a list of the various formats. So it's but it's not just any uploaded video that's available online. It has to be specific ones for the video in particular. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's stop.
I mean, on YouTube, there's so much available. I think basically for any topic, you would be able to find something there. And
if
as
you
I
are
said,
recording your own video, it's easy enough to upload it to YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. You can just have your own YouTube, and you can keep it private. You can still use a private link, can't you? Or does it need to be public? Yeah.
I'm not sure about that one, but because I've not looked into that for a long time. I know that the way we set it on TeachFit is that it has to be either private or unlisted. Sorry, public or unlisted.
Okay.
But usually the settings for private means that only you can see the video.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
okay, but at least unlisted then.
yeah, I would think that would work. Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, if you got something on YouTube, so it's really great for songs. If you're doing a French song, Spanish song, whatever, just Google for the lyrics, put the lyrics into the text box, and you can really quickly make a great gap fill task or whatever. And then, yeah, so the images need to be uploaded, need to be online pictures. So if you just, I don't know if you want to do the pets or whatever, if you just Google a picture of a horse and then just copy the link to that, it works with most pictures that you find. Sometimes you get a really weird long link, but normally you can find one. Okay, and then you've got this box here for parallel or additional text. So this is where you put in, for example, if you have a translation task, you can put it in there. But there are also lots of different options, and Martin has a lot of good examples there if you look in the user guides or in his blog. So for example, it doesn't need to be a straight translation. You could just have key points like name, John, age, 15, and they then have to turn it into text. My name is John, I'm 15 years old. So, and the parallel text can be in whatever language and in whatever form. So there are lots of different options there. And something really great as well, if you just want to help them with spelling, so if you've got weak students who struggle with spelling, you can use the A to Z. Let me go back to one that has text and then makes it a bit more clear. Maybe lose this one. Oh no, wait, I've gone to the wrong bit. So extras. So in this case, I've got the translation in here, but I'll just get rid of this. And instead, I'm clicking A to Z word list as parallel. So now it's taking all the words from the German text and put them in alphabetical order. So this will now help them if they do something like a writing task. Let's say here, no letters. So they can now turn on the parallel text. Bloop, there we go. And they have all the words, but in the wrong order. So if they know kind of what the text is, but they can't remember the spelling, or they're not sure about the different adjective ending, verbs endings, and so on, they can just check with that list there. Or in this case here, you can make it into a listening task. So,
Ich wohne in einer kleinen Stadt im Norden von England.
Yeah, so they can listen to it and then try to reconstruct that text they're listening to from all these words they see, which is great. Yeah, so that's another great option that you can have in the extras. Is there anything else? Yeah, there are lots of other extras as well. I don't think I've got time to go through all of them. But for example, if you give them a challenge, so that's the one where they can choose their own tasks in which order they're doing, you can exclude certain activities. So let's say you don't want them to play the football game because you know they end up just playing that the whole time. You can click it there and exclude it from the list, so they can't choose that anymore. Or if you want them to just concentrate on the match activities and not do any of the text activities and so on. So you can, there are lots of options. It's very, customizable really. And actually one that I completely forgot, my absolute favorite activity is the Trapdoor activity, which goes by different names, but you might recognize it. So if I go down here to text Trapdoor, so this is a great activity to get students to talk, not necessarily during remote learning, but in the classroom. So the first person has to read it out. Ich wohne in. Oh, Helen, are you still there?
Yes, I'm
Amy,
still here. Are you going to put me on
I get you to do some guessing now. Here, test your German. Also, ich wohne in.
Ich wohne in.
And what do you think?
Ich wohne in
Einer kleinen Stadt, einem kleinen Dorf oder einer großen Stadt?
Ich wohne in einem kleinen Dorf.
Okay, let's go with this one. Bad luck. You got it wrong. So now
Ich wohne
the
in.
next person would need to have a go and maybe go with this one. Still wrong.
Ich wohne in
So what's the last one left then? Must be
einer
this one.
kleinen Stadt
Okay, then I need to read out the next
im
bit.
Norden von England. Ich habe eine.
What's the family like? What do you think?
Eine kleine.
Kleine. Oh, well
Kleine.
Okay, and so on. So it's just a little guessing game, but my students love it. Well, mainly because there's a prize at the end of it for the person who gets to the end. But it's just a nice little plenary, and it really gets them to read it out, and they read it out several times without really noticing, because every time someone gets it wrong, they have to start all the way from the beginning.
Familie.
So if I get it wrong
Einen
here,
Bruder, eine
now,
Schwester,
so now I'm
eine
back to
Mutter
the
und
first.
einen Vater.
It's talking
Wir
to-
haben auch einen kleinen, braunen.
So now they would need to start from the beginning again. So in this, there are two different versions of this as well. So this one was literally just guessing. So the teacher doesn't know, the students don't know. It's just randomly chosen which of the options it is, if it's a town or a village they live in. But you could also do it not randomly. So if I go here into text Trapdoor, so you see, it just shows me the text here. I literally just click on the word that I want to have as an option. And I have England, so I could just add more options and say Scotland and Wales. And I have to guess that. And I've said random guessing. So any of the options could be chosen by the computer. Or I can do fixed option. And that makes sense if you do something that's wrong. So if I now say English, and I don't know, English or something, then obviously these ones are wrong. They have to guess the first one. So in this guessing game, they really need to know the text. It's not about guessing, it's about knowing the vocabulary. So that's a different way of using this activity. But for that, you would need to change all the options. Yeah, but it's an easy way of creating this Trapdoor activity there. And then, so for images, so I said you can add an image here. So that's the big image that comes up at the side of the text. If you want to have actually a match image so that it looks like this, that it's the picture of a dog matched up with einen Hund, in that case, you need to put it in here. So you need to have this at the beginning. So the square brackets and then the link, and then at the end. But I've got I've written a little guide with all those different symbols that you can use. So how to put in images and so on, because I always forget how to do it. I mean, there's a really good user guide on here as well. So if you want, you can just look in the user guide, but I kind of made a shorter version of that, which might be useful as a quick reference on what was that shortcut for images again. And was it a double hyphen or not, and so on, and how to put in the speaky bit. Yeah, so I can share that in a minute. What else did I want to say? Are there any questions at the moment? What I'm thinking, what I've forgotten. So about sequences, I won't go into too much detail now how to do it, but you can have a sequence that consists of several different resources, because in each resource, so like here, you normally just have one list of match items and you can have one text. But let's say for homework, you want them first to revise this the vocab on family and also do the gap fill. And then straight away, you also want them to do a recap on the numbers that you did last week. And there are ways of putting both of them in the same sequence, but it's a bit more complicated. And for that, you would need to create individual links to each of the activities. But the time's kind of running out. So I can explain it if people want to still know, but otherwise you can look in the user guide on Textivate, or you can see the shorter guide kind of that I've made as well. Yes, I think that's the main things I wanted to talk about. So the only things I could still go into is how to sign up students or how to make a sequence, but the time is up, so maybe there are other questions as well.
I think those questions, I was going to say, those were questions where people are asking from this, what does it look like from the student point of view, and also the actual making of the sequence. So I think probably that would be useful if you've got time to do that.
Yes. Okay, so from the student's point of view, it looks pretty similar. So shall I quickly say how to sign up students? So when you're on your main kind of edit screen, down there you've got the little people. So go on there, I'll add new class. So let's say year 10. And then you can just type in their names. So let's say Helen Myers is in my class and Martin Labworth is in my class. So if I just do this, it will automatically generate random usernames for them. So if I just click save, it now has made Helen 415 and Martin 370. So I can leave it at that if I don't mind. But if your students are as forgetful as mine, you might want to use a username that's easier to remember, for example, because it's the same as their school email address, or it's the same as their login to ActiveLearn or Textivate. So to do that, you type in their name, then I think it's just colon, and then type the username. So let's say, I don't know, her username is Myers H, and then I click save. So it's now kept my username. So you can either randomly do it or choose your own usernames. So let's try to remember this one. So we'll do, I just copy this, so I don't forget. So I would give the students this at the beginning of the year, or, well, actually I remind them every time, remember your Textivate login is the same as your ActiveLearn one or whatever. So if I've made a sequence, so I need to save it, otherwise I can't share it. Okay, save. So once I've shared it, so share this, link to sequence. Shall I, well, let's see. Actually, I might just go into my Google, pretend I'm Helen. There you go. So hope it's opening now. Where's it going? Bit slow with the video on, sorry. So, so I've shared on OneNote, Teams, whatever. I follow the link, and it will ask them for a username and login. So the username will be the same for everyone. So this is your school, or this is your teacher login. So Millfield is my school, and we've got well, we've got a department subscription, and for some reason I'm Millfield 12. So my colleague will be Millfield 9, and another colleague is Millfield 6, and so on. So, but everyone who's in my class will have to start with Millfield 12, and then that student password, which is the one I just generated. So in this case, it would be, oops, what was it? Myers page 2000. Let's hope that works now. Oh no, it doesn't. Okay, but she would have to log in there, So you always need to tell them not to put anything in the teacher password. I don't know why, but they always put it in the wrong box. So always tell them whatever your password is, or your username for everyone, leave the middle free and put the student password in the bottom. And then once they're logged in, they can then do all the activities. And after each one that they, after they do, I can see the results. So in this case, let's quickly do this. So the dog is
Einen Hund.
Can I turn this off? Brother,
Einen Bruder.
family.
Ich habe einen Vater.
Okay, so I've completed this activity. So it says activities completed, activities remaining 5. Close this box and click next. So I can close this, click on next. It's asking me
Ein Meerschweinchen.
asking me to log back in again because I haven't managed to do it. So they can log in at the very end. So if they do all the tasks, as long as they log in by the end of all the tasks, then you can see their results. So now my next activity is multiple choice. So guinea pig is Meerschweinchen and so on.
Ich habe eine Familie.
And then after this activity, again, I would say next. Down here, I can see I'm in activity 2 out of 6. I can restart the sequence. So that's what they probably don't want to do normally, because then they have to start all the way at the beginning, or they can just restart this one activity. So especially if it's a translation task and they realize they only have 20% correct or whatever, they might want to restart it so they get enough points to, for me to tick off their homework or whatever they're doing, or their online classwork.
I
Yeah,
think
so this is what it looks like from the student's point of view.
that's brilliant. I really think you've covered so much now, Julia, which is what you'd said about covering all the things which, a lot of the things that Textivate does, but also what it is to set up a sequence. I noticed that Martin put his video on, and I didn't know if Martin wanted to say anything before I give you thanks. Or
I think all I was going to do was tell her what the password was.
oh, right.
But no, you've done a great job, Julia. I mean, what you've demonstrated is it is quite complicated to follow, and people are saying in the chat they've learned so much from it, and there's so many different things that they're seeing that they haven't come across before, and it just demonstrates how many different things you can do with Textivate, and that's why it's quite tricky to cover everything in an hour, as I found the other day.
Yeah, just my advice is just get started with some matchup activities. You literally just copy a vocab list from Quizlet or from your vocab book or whatever, copy it in and start playing around with that, and just do it. Well, if schools are open, you can just do it on the whiteboard. I mean, that's how I use it most up to this year anyway. I use it at the beginning of a topic to introduce the new vocab, and then at the next lesson recap the vocab and so on. But then now you can easily share with the students as well, and just let them play around with it a bit, I would say. And then when you get a bit more confident with it, then try some of the other things like the extra with the videos and the sound and so on. So but I'll send around the guide in a minute, and then hopefully that will help a bit as well. And I send the link to the challenge as well, which just means you can try out all the different games. I mean, you have to do it with the German vocab I've put in, but at least you can try out. And I guess if you don't know German, that's probably quite good, because then you can really see what it's like for your students if they have to learn your language. So might be quite a good experience as well.
Well, there's loads and loads of thank yous there, Julia. People are doing that. If you wouldn't mind stopping sharing your screen now.
Yes.
If people do want to put their webcams on, normally I just like taking a picture of who is here. So if you're not too shy, I mean, don't run away, and I'm not going to bully you, but if you'd like to put your webcams on, and then that's rather nice for Julia to have a little picture, a little selfie of everybody. And we've had so many ideas as well as you've been going through, Julia. I mean, there obviously are some people, a lot of people who are using it, who had extra little ideas as well. So that was great.
Yes, well, I've been using it for 5 years, and still this week Martin showed me quite a few tricks on how to do the listening and so on, which I didn't really realize. I mean, up to now, I didn't really need to use it because I'm a native speaker. So for me, it's easy in class to just say it. But obviously with lockdown, it's quite important to have the text to speech. And it also means the students can paste in their text as well and listen to it, which is really useful as well. So yeah.
Right.
Okay. I'll send the challenge here.
And I'll take a picture now. All right. So is everybody there? Who's going to be there? 1, 2, 3. And I know that some people did have to leave, obviously, because we've, at one point we did have about 70 people, I think.
Wow.
So,
very good.
So that's great. So I've got that picture, which I'll do a save as, and then that's our class photo for this session. There we are. But really, I'd echo what you say, and I know that you said it, Martin, and you've said it as well, Julia. There is a lot in there, and there's a danger sometimes that people think if they're a bit overwhelmed, that they tend not to try things. But it's like everything that you have to say to people. Simple isn't necessarily good always. It's not always the best. Things are complex, and that's what's so brilliant about this resource, is that you've got everything.
Yeah, it just gives you a lot of options, which is good.
And whatever your preferred way of teaching is, whether you follow a book or a method or whatever, I mean, this is just good practice. And you could almost, I feel that you've been doing this for ages, Martin, through Task Magic, and the resource sometimes can bring with it the practice, which then people think, oh, that works really well. So you don't always have to start with a theory and then go with what you want. If you use the resource, you'll find that things work.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you provide your students with these kinds of resources and activities for them to play with, they're bound to pick up the language, because there's so much practice. If you compare a 5-minute session working with a Textivate text or matching activities with doing a similar thing on a worksheet or something, there's so many more interactions and immediate feedback. So it's and as far as I know, there isn't anything else out there that actually gets students rebuilding texts and doing text reconstruction work in the same way that Textivate does. There's plenty of stuff out there for flashcards, Quizlet, all these different things for multiple choice questions and matching items, but there doesn't appear to be anything else that does this kind of intense text work.
Definitely. The text part is what gives it the edge over Quizlet, I would say.
And yes, and it was the thing. I mean, I can remember, I've been around for ages, and I've been a fan of Task Magic for decades, it seems. And I was so excited when Task Magic came out, because yes, there was something called Fun with Text, which had a similar sort of idea, where the idea was, yes, it's text reconstruction, and you really are making people think about language. And I like the idea, even having pairs deciding about how are you going to reconstruct the text, and you find them talking about language. No, you need a noun there, you need an adjective there, so much. And when Task Magic came around, I just thought, wow, that's brilliant.
And even my sixth formers, when I asked them, do you want to do the task with Textivate or on your own, they definitely always choose to do it with Textivate. Makes it a bit easier. And for me, I know they get it right, because I can see their score straight away. So yeah.
So I didn't sort of say to everybody, say thank you. Everyone's just saying thank you, but thank you very much, Julia. Absolutely lovely. And
sorry, I have to speak quite fast, but there's just so much to cover.
It's nice to see, because Martin gave a really good webinar with Jen about the project, but I know you had to do Textivate and Teachvid, which of course also is fantastic. But we just thought, when we talked about it afterwards, Julie and I, we thought it'd be quite nice to have something from a teacher point of view, just to say, look, here it is, and really do use it.
I absolutely agree with that, because even though I've designed all these different activities and so on, I've not actually taught students since the early days of Task Magic. So it really is good to have a teacher's perspective on how these things are used, and what works and what doesn't work with classes and so on. So yeah.
And Julia, you've come up with so many different ways of doing it. I mean, I love that idea of making, there are two things. One thing was, there's the translation task, the fact we can then apply it to what we're doing at the moment. And that one where you had the matching, where it wasn't necessarily straightforward of just, well, what's the translation, but what would have been the question that goes with that answer, and the way you mixed up the listening and the reading. I mean, just lovely, imaginative ways of doing it. It's great, really, really good.
Yeah.
So does anybody else who'd like to say anything? We did say, I think, have I made it so you can't unmute yourself? I may have done something. Oh, I've got to allow you to unmute yourself. Sorry, forget to do that. Is Greg still there? I don't know if Greg's still there. He had loads of Greg Armstrong. had loads of
Well,
ideas as well, that he was saying what he did, and then you would come up and say, and one thing I do is, so thank you very much. And then
Well,
Mark, he was saying you had loads of ideas for songs. And that's what I've used it for, loads, is songs. And the whole parallel text thing, which it seems to be fashionable now. I mean, you've been doing this for ages, haven't you, Martin?
Yeah.
You know, really good.
Yeah, and I mean, because the text-to-speech is so easy to make, I think it's really good for the students to have it on, even if maybe they don't need it to answer the questions, they can see the text as well, but hearing it at the same time will just, I think, get them more used to the sounds of the language and so on, and also to see how the sounds are maybe different from the spelling and so on. So it's really good to have that constant listening task if they're at home, especially. And I mean, we can't check if they just put it all on mute, but
if you're setting up resources and activities that are only based on text, we don't know how they're reading that in their inner voice. They could be mispronouncing every single word that they read. So the good thing about having text-to-speech, even though it's not perfect, and I acknowledge that there are issues very often, especially with intonation in a full sentence or a full paragraph being read out. But at least it gives the students some kind of oral model, which they wouldn't have at all unless.
Yeah. Well, when I use it for French, it's definitely better than my French pronunciation. So
I agree. That's why I make videos for TeachFib with text-to-speech audio, because I'd rather listen to that than myself reading it out. So
yeah.
No, you're right, and it is. I mean, the technology has. Oh, it's got so much better since whenever it was we started Language College in 1998, and now, I mean, it really is good. It's very, very good.
Yeah,
I think it's really
it just gets funny when you put the wrong language on the wrong side and it tries to read the German with an English accent or the other way around. The students probably wouldn't even notice, but
that makes it fun. So, okay, well, thank you ever so much. And then there were, I think, Martin, we did cover. You managed to answer all the questions that people gave.
Yeah, I mean, if there are any more questions about actually using it with teacher in class or for remote learning, then let me know. I mean, a good thing with remote learning, for example, if you're using OneNote, my plan for next year is maybe that after they've done the task, they can just take a screenshot of their completed translation, whatever, and just put it in their OneNote file as well. And then they have the record of it, that they've done it. They can use it for reference later on, and I can show it to my head of department that I've done it as well. So yeah, it's good to keep it all together then as well.
And I think there are quite a lot of us in that situation where we're using a platform where you want to have the evidence of it. And yes, the idea about, because the link, you just put the link, wouldn't you, on the OneNote then?
Yeah.
So that would take them to the activity. So then you'd say, take a screenshot, but you'd have a record of it anyway, wouldn't you, if you've tracked them?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Only if it's
but for them, for reference, then if they want to go over the text again or the vocab list or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Or you can just print the worksheet to their OneNote for them to work on and so on.
And I'm looking at these things. Hello from Belarus. I mean, Canada.
Wow.
But we've got lots of nationalities here.
I mean, a good trick as well. I mean, it's a bit late now. People are leaving, but a good trick is as well, if you want to give it for an online task, if you click print and then don't actually print it, but just copy and paste from the print preview, and then you can just put it into a Word document. So that's how I often do my...
I've never known that.
Yeah, so if you want to have a gap fill or something and put it on OneNote, you can just do it like that.
That's really good.
I mean,